All right, welcome back, everyone. So I'm taking over for Martijn again. Thank you for doing the last 3 workshops. So now I'm here with Kristine Konsmo. I am not sure if I keep pronouncing that correctly.
Yes, that's perfect.
Yes, and she will be giving a workshop on MSD 33 on Sword and Buckler and binding with the false edge. Yeah, Kristine, go ahead.
Yeah, so we have 30 minutes. So this is a workshop that the last time I gave it, it took 6 hours to go through the material. So it can be it's something you can really dive into, but I'm going to try to consolidate that into something very concise. I.33 is a manuscript that is kind of the dweeb of HEMA. Everyone makes fun of it for being awkward illustrations, difficult to figure out. It's also, I think, one of the manuscripts that has created for the most hostile online environment. People get very heated when comparing their interpretations with one another. And I feel like I've personally decided to stay out of the I.33 online community because I tried to engage a few times and it was a very aggressive place. People are very protective of their interpretations. I think that since it is one of those manuscripts that we have so little information about and it is obscure, I think that we have to be liberal in our interpretations and we have to be open-minded to completely different approaches that different people have. I always think it's interesting when I hold a seminar and one of the students will come with, or several of the students will come with very different approaches or very different lenses that they wear when they look at the plates. I think that's awesome. I think also, fencing is fencing to a degree, a blade is a blade to a degree, and we have all of the other manuscripts that came later to borrow from. I borrow very much from rapier when I look at I.33 because I look at I.33 as a binding and thrusting weapon primarily, and this is what, at least the type of Italian rapier that I look at is that as well. So I feel like using the same physics, the same principles, we can use more modern manuscripts which have better detailing and more thorough investigation of swordplay and kind of extrapolate it back onto I.33. And so I do that to an extent. So a lot of my interpretations are, I have been criticized for not using the exact wording that is in the manuscript or stepping a little bit outside of the play and kind of borrowing from elsewhere. But I think that we have to do that with something as obscure as I.33. So I'm not a purist in that sense, but when it comes to Sword and Buckler, I am a purist in that I only work with I.33 within Sword and Buckler. I'm not really interested in the other manuscripts. And that's another thing that people don't like about me. So you can make your own decision afterwards. I'm going to be, as our host mentioned, I'm going to be looking at false edge binding, which is something I've started playing with a few years ago. Just a little background about my I.33 fencing. I've been doing I.33 for 12 years. I started in Oslo with Vector did. And the reason why I did I.33 is because that's what my instructor did. His name is Thomas Nyløkken. He was a wonderful instructor, wonderful fencer. And that was his obsession. And I wanted to do longsword because I'm kind of a jock from before. And longsword is the jock weapon. But he was like, no, we're going to do I.33. And I was thrown into a tournament at Swordfish in 2011 when one of our teammates just didn't show up. He was supposed to compete. I did not sign up to compete. And it went really well for me. And from there, I was kind of thrown into it, like by the HEMA community. People started asking me to instruct and asking, and I was new. I didn't really know what I was doing. So it kind of forced me to start doing my own research and making my own assumptions and conclusions. And it's kind of just taken off from there over the past decade plus. So here I am still working with I.33. It's still my personal favorite. I don't care that everyone hates it. I love it. So usually I work from a very nice printed book, but I couldn't find it. So these are my notes from 12 years ago when I started doing I.33. So bear with me. It's very poorly pixelated, printed out pictures. I'm going to talk a little bit about what I'm going to be looking at by showing examples in the manuscript. And then later I'm going to demonstrate them in this room. So here we are. Right here, I.33. So binding with false edge. Those of you who have worked with I.33, you know that it is a lot about binding, it's a lot about thrusting, it's a lot about working with the center line. There are cuts, but my argument, and I think a lot of other people's arguments, is the aim is not to land the cut. The aim is to get in there to thrust. And I believe that a lot of the awkward positions in the illustrations, with the elbows being twisted and the arms being twisted, it's not just poor artistry. I believe it's showing that we are actually holding the blade to set us up for catching the opponent's blade with false edge. I've done this in sparring, I've done this in tournaments and had great success with it. So I think that there's something to it. I'm just going to show a few plates which I feel really illustrate this. The first one is actually already on the first page of the manuscript. And again, I apologize for the poor quality since I can't find my usual book. Here we have somebody standing in first ward. We have the priest standing in first ward. Just going to zoom in. I don't know if you can see it or not. I'm trying to hold it up to the camera, but I can't see myself. So if you look here, his elbow is perked out in a way that is a bit awkward. And since his hand is behind the buckler, you can't see it. Just going to grab a sword. Show real quick. So I believe that he is holding the sword like so, with false edge up to set himself up for the cut. And I'm going to show you later, but just to have that compared to the illustration I just showed you, check out my elbow. It's definitely not tucked in. It's kind of, and it's because of this angle that I'm holding it up, preparing myself for that cut with the false edge coming in. So just to show you that. Another one we have here is third ward. Can you see him? Okay. So there we have the priest again, and he is standing in third ward. And if you look here at his hand, can you see his hand? It's kind of like you can see his fingers. It's awkward, right? So to show you that grip, when I do third ward, I believe that there's two different ways of doing it. Okay, so here you have second ward, basic. It's like anybody picking up a sword for the first time, they're going to hold it this way to their dominant side, given that you're right-handed. And then third ward is the mirror opposite of that, and we move it over to the left side or the non-dominant side. However, in a lot of the illustrations, third ward is held. So see here, I'm holding it and I'm rotating it. I have true edge forward or long edge, as some of you are inclined to call it, and I'm rotating it so that I have false edge forward and I have a thumb grip, right? And this is to set me up for cutting into that bind and to get a nice rotation into the thrust, which I'm going to show again later. But just recall that this is how you can see my hand here. Super awkward, right? And when I started, when I looked at it and I was like, okay, I think that this is how we should be cutting from third ward in some of the cases. When I first started doing it, it was very uncomfortable. It was very awkward. And then once I built up those muscles around my wrist, holding it this way and actually cutting in this way, it's just different muscles that you're not used to using. The more I worked with it, and the better I was able to land the blade on the weak of my opponent's blade, the better it worked. So I really believe in this. Back to some more illustrations. I'm just going to try not to get my notes out of order. Here. Yeah, so here I have a little bit better picture of a first ward. The illustration is slightly less pixelated. You can see him. Here we have the priest again. Here we have, and this is something I'm going to show you. And then actually, if there's time, once I've gone through them, actually demonstrating them, then I'll go back to these illustrations, because then you'll have the reference point of what I did with the sword. So here we have this plate. He is standing in first ward, and he is holding Kirken. And he could potentially from here go into long point. And he is going to cut from first ward and bind with false edge. And he has in Kristine, he has quite a weak position of his blade, so it's going to be very easy for him to catch his blade with false edge and rotate into the thrust. And I'll show that afterwards. Here it actually is demonstrated, in my opinion, at least that's how I interpret it. Here he has made the bind. You see him with false edge actually coming in for the bind. Again, I don't know if you can see this very well. I can't see myself. Here we have he's binding from false edge on the inside line, which is the most effective in my opinion. You can see it's actually this time the scholar who's doing it. And here we have an example of the priest winding from above over long point, or it could be half shield or long points, either of them will work. Or he could be in one of the obsessios, winding from above and down. Oh, I love this one, and this one is going to be fun to show you afterwards. This is third ward, as I showed you before, and he is holding it. Look at his elbow. His elbow is all wonky like that because I believe he's holding this awkward position, like so, if you can see, as I was holding it before, the thumb grip. And he's setting up. He's in long point, and he's going to cut in with false edge and rotate the blade. Four from first ward. Okay, now we're getting to my absolute favorite. I cannot wait to show this one later. Sixth ward. I love sixth ward. It's my favorite. I use it in every tournament I compete in. It tends to work well for me. I don't see anyone else working with sixth ward. If you are somebody working with sixth ward and you have a different approach to me or you have a similar approach to mine, DM me. I want to talk about sixth ward because no one is talking about it. He's in sixth ward. There. And he could be in long point. He's in a sort of a high long point. He could be in half shield. He could be in one of the obsessios. I mean, I know that I'm not talking about this specific play. I'm talking about if we extrapolate from this play and apply it to other potential scenarios. And look at the position of his hand. How do you think that he's holding it? I'm going to show you how I think he's holding it. So, sixth ward, best ward ever. I see a lot holding it as so. So with the fingers pointing to the outside line, true edge pointing down, false edge pointing up. I don't see the point in this. I think if you're going to, here you're exposing your distance, you're not really set up to do anything. Since you have a vertical alignment of your blade, you're not protecting any one line. It's just, I don't see the benefit of it. If you want to do something where you hide your blade and you set up for thrust, then I believe that fifth ward is much better for that. Look at his hand. You push your blade out, you rotate it, and you draw it in to your chest. Your fingers are up. False edge is down and true edge is up, right? And from here, we are perfectly aligned to bind with the false edge coming in and rotate the true edge, which I will show later. But I just wanted to get that grip down. So what we're primarily looking at is first ward, third ward, and sixth ward to begin with. But there's more. Okay. How far back should I go?
Yeah, true.
Okay. So I believe I just was talking about sixth ward and I was rambling a little bit, so it's fine. We can skip that. How much time do I have left, actually? I just want to make sure I'm not running over.
20, 25 or so.
I have 20, 25 minutes left?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm talking so fast. Okay.
With the Q&A, we have some spare So it should be fine. We need to be done at 3:45.
Okay, awesome. I'm gonna keep going.
Go.
I love this next plate. This is also stick sword, if we can just catch that image there.
Mm-hmm.
Here he is in stick sword, as I demonstrated above. And I love the reaction, like this dramatic, oh no, because stick sword is terrifying, it's so effective. So if somebody pulled stick sword on me like that, I would also have that reaction, seriously. It's wonderful. So again, in case when the computer crashed, you missed it, this is my sixth ward, third ward, and we've done first ward. So there's more. Yeah, so this is just demonstrating who's going from sixth ward in, and here it's hard to see with these poor pixelated images, but he's binding with the false edge.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll show you. Okay. Here's another one, catching with false edge. Here's another one. Scholar is in long point, priest is catching him with the false edge, and he's going to make the bind. Here he actually makes, he cuts up from it, but from here you could bind around as they show in many of the other plates. But I think this is a really good example of him catching the blade with false edge. Here we have someone binding down from false. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. Once you see it, you don't unsee it. I feel like everything is full of false edge binding. And here we get to my second favorite, which is probably what I use most in tournaments, and it's priest special. Yeah, here we go. The priest is in priest special.
Yeah.
You see him?
Yes.
Cool. All right. So again, look at his elbow. I'm just gonna. It's super awkward, and look at his fingers, right? And this is one of the things that people like, that I.33 gets a lot of beef for, that people make fun of, is keeping all these weird angles, but it's because he's holding it in a certain way. So gonna get a sword, and gonna get a buckler. I see a lot of people holding stick sword like so, where they have they take a normal grip that you would have on a sword and simply bring it down. This is relevant. I'm sure it works in a lot of cases. There's validity to it. Again, I'm very liberal, and I think that there's no wrong approach if it works for you. I hold my priest this way. So as you can see, I've rotated the blade, and I have my fingers are raised.
Mm-hmm.
And look at my elbow. This forces, if you hold it like so, of course you can tuck your elbow in. As soon as you rotate, you get this awkward angle on your elbow, and your fingers are pointing up or outside as they do in the illustration. I hold my buckler around my hip level, and from here, you're set up to catch with the false edge. True edge. When you catch the blade, but again, I'll show that. Right, so there's tons more. Here's an even better one. He's in priest special. The scholar this time is in priest special, and I think this illustration shows really well how you should be holding it with your hand. That you should have the blade pointing the way I showed it, and what it does to your elbow when you do that. So yeah, you can say people about the art, and I think that's the difference. Here we have the fourth. Scholars in fifth ward there. So fifth ward, have your sword just holding it with a normal grip. You lower it and you simply point the tip backwards. And from here, you are set up to either do a ascending cut and catch with true edge, or I believe you should do an ascending cut with false edge. From here, you catch the blade with false edge and you rotate. But it's easier to show when I have a partner with the blade. There's just so many examples. That was the sword. There's more, but I'll say that if there's time at the end, then I can go back to some of the illustrations. If there's questions about specific ones, then we can look at that. I'm not going to spend too much more time. But this one is good. Actually, I'm going to, sorry, my dog is
No problem.
crying. Here we have the scholar is in priest special and the priest is in fifth ward. And this one is really cool. This is a really cool play. If you hold the swords as I demonstrated now, and they both meet one another on the bind, they both meet one another in false edge. And then that's meeting in false edge is weak, and then they're both at the center line and both struggling to make the bind into true edge. So that's a really cool play. That's when you're both fencing with false edge, and that this one here is really cool. So now we're going to do some actual demonstration. My partner for today, since I'm at home, and I want you to be very nice because he's not a fencer, he's a cyclist. And he's agreed to help me out. He's literally never held a sword before. So he's simply just going to stand in long point and allow me to demonstrate stuff. So be forgiving, he's a cyclist. I'm Chris, yes. Okay. So I'm going to be using a I.33 Sword Buckler, best ever. And here we have a Mark Vickers. This is my other favorite I.33 sword, or I.33 arming sword. This is not an I.33 sword, but this is super cool. I'm actually going to be demonstrating a lot of this without the buckler because the buckler in many cases obstructs the hands, and the hand position, the grip position, is what my philosophy is all about. So we're going to actually leave the buckler out for a while, and I'm going to go through those wards that I talked about, namely first ward, third ward, sixth ward, priest special, and fifth and rare fifth, and show all the ways you can bind with those. Second ward doesn't apply to this. The obsessios are kind of irrelevant to this, so it's mostly about wards and meeting somebody in either. They would be in one of the obsessios, or they would be in long point. And long point is the best to demonstrate with, so I'm going to try to stick to that. Or, of course, half shield. So, Chris, who's never held a sword, can you stand in long point? Do you know what that is? Just hold the sword straight out. Just hold it like, extend your arm. And we want to make sure that, so if you just scoot back, because I just want the blade, basically. So here's the blade. You can see it, and you're watching this up there. Great. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to try not to hit too many walls and ceilings. First ward, as I mentioned, I hold it, just normal grip, and then bringing it straight down to your non-dominant side, and then you have your buckler here. We're going to leave the buckler out. It's not relevant at the moment. And from here, I'm cutting with false edge, straight up, vertical cut, right next to my head, here. And I'm meeting with the strong of my blade, and this is very much like right here, on the weak of his blade, with false edge here. And from here, I get the rotation in. And from here, I can either, I'm set up, if he were to thrust, would we just extend the sword a bit, just switch it forward? No, yeah, exactly. If he's set offline, and I am set up with my true edge to extend into the thrust, or to extend into a normal, one of these binds, shield knot, cut up, what have you. Again, when you do these drills yourself, always wear a mask. I'm doing this very, very slowly, which is why I'm not. I want you to hear me, which is why I'm not wearing a mask myself. But obviously, when you do these drills at any tempo, which is beyond 10%, 5% intensity, then put on a mask and glove. So once again, you put your just the back on point, perfect. You have a blade here. First form, cutting straight up with false edge. False edge is meeting this blade, and from here, it's the perfect leverage to rotate fully into true edge and either thrust or bind. with the buckler. Then you first edge, cutting with false. And that's what we can do with first. Cool. So moving on to third ward. Third ward is something that I myself have not used that much because I feel like it works better against opponents who are left-handed or working a third ward a lot themselves, or somebody who's set up in third obsessed field, and you don't get a lot of that in tournament situations. You only get it like in sparring with other I.33ers. So not that often an opportunity. But I think in theory, third ward with false edge is super cool. And as I showed before, second ward, of course, opposite leg forward, third ward, and this is also a way that I can pull third ward. Of course, you should have a loose grip. And you rotate. So holding it normally with shreds out, rotate so that false edge is out. And then you get exactly that hand grip that you see in the manuscript in so many of the plates where they are holding third ward. So once again, if you just give me a long point, here we have a sword. Yeah, so, and of course, I believe that you should have a really quite low stance when you're doing, I don't know if you can see my feet, probably not, unfortunately, small face, but if you can see my feet, I have a low stance and my weight is very much on the front part of my feet. So I don't have my heels off the ground to the same extent that they do in the manuscript. I'm not on my toes, but my weight is definitely in the ball of my feet. I'm forward leaning. I'm, you know, my momentum is forwards. So here I am in third ward. This super awkward position that you see in the manuscript. Have somebody who's coming at you with thrust and a long point and then half shield or whatever, and you're cutting down, straight down, same as I did from first ward. I'm cutting straight into the blade, and I'm meeting with false edge, and I'm rotating into true edge. It's just like rapier, except with rapier we don't cut from up here, right? But we have, in rapier we have the wards, and we're binding, we're rotating something. This is exactly what I.33 is. Is that we have a different type of sword in the rapier. It's different dynamics, a little bit different. We're meeting, coming straight in with false edge, rotating into true edge, and either thrusting or, of course, binding. Buckler. Have it out. Of course, this is a threat. This is a threat. I want to have myself protected. When I'm cutting down, I'm meeting with my buckler. My sword and my buckler are meeting together, and I am rotating. As I rotate, my buckler is covering my hand in case the blade comes down onto my hand. And from here, I either press or once again, third ward. That rotation. What was next? Sixth ward, my favorite. And this is, I think you get the idea, right? So once you start doing this from the wards, you see how you can apply it to most of them. We've done it from first, we've done it from third. From sixth, it's the most effective because you don't have to cut from any of the wards into the blade. You are already set up for it. So again, I don't hold it like this. I hold it with stretch up. My fingers to my outside line, my knuckles to my inside line. And if I get a long point, and usually we have a lot more space and we can close the distance, but here we are. Imagine that you've already closed the distance. From here, his reach is given away. His distance is what it is. He could lunge, he could move forward, he could take a step. But from here, we have the same blade length towards one another. So our tips are about the same distance from one another. But I have all this reach that he does not have because I'm in sixth ward. I have it tucked in, I have it, it's not exposed. So if I meet a blade here, if he were to try to rotate his blade, with true edge, his weak is on me, so he would have to take several passing steps or a really long lunge, which is dangerous, in order to have the same leverage on me that I would potentially have on him from 6th Sword. So from 6th Sword, in this distance, I'm covered, and from here, all I have to do is extend, and just by extending, I have the strong command leg on the weakest hip. And he is very weak in the body here. I'm very strong. I extend to thrust, or, of course, I slide down and cut out. So I love it. It's just it's so beautiful and sparkling when you get it right. Of course, you have a buckler at some point, and you have it out somewhere. You don't really need it in this situation when you're on his outside line, or when he's on your outside line, he or she or they, because the buckler isn't very effective here. But when it comes into play, is when you're binding down, then you want it there to cover your hand, or if you're going up. In case his blade were to come up or something. That's what the buckler is for. And the buckler is very much here. So that was 6th Sword. Again, I love it. It's my favorite. And then we have my other favorite, or my second favorite, Pre-Special. And this is so cool. So once again, to show you how I hold it, instead of holding it with true edge down, I hold it with true edge up. I have this rotation, I have the awkward fingers, I have the awkward elbow. I'm an old school guy from the 1300s. This is how I'm standing. I get a hip, I get a long point. Just back up a little bit so that we're in the frame here. It's the same physics. And think about it. Right now, I'm doing it more than I'm doing it all on my opponent's outside line. And think about how you can apply this to the inside line when you turn everything everything around. This is why this you can really go down the rabbit hole with it. And that's how you go something on this for 6 hours. But priest, I have my funny grip, and it's just the same as you can do the whole time. I'm meeting with false edge, straight up, rotating to direct. False edge, strong on weak, rotation. Or sliding down, cutting up. Same exact thing from all before. They say it in the manuscript. They're like, I think it's so funny how in the manuscript they're like, oh, and as we said before, do the same thing we said before. I mean, even there, like, this is repetition. This is what we talked about. It's the same. Well, they admit that so many times in the manuscript. As we said before, the priest does this, so on and so forth. So. Low stance on the balls of my toes. Meeting him with my buckler covering my hands. False edge is on his blade. Rotating. My buckler. And I either thrusting from here, or I'm sliding down, shield knot, as before. So that was pretty special. And then we have 5th Ward. And actually, I'm going to go back to 5th and 1st, because 5th Ward and 1st Ward are, I believe, the same guard, mirroring one another. And you get the same bind from false edge, but on 2 different sides of your opponent's blade. So it's good for demonstrating that. I'm not sure how much time I have, so just tell me when I've gone too far. I can stop at any time.
A few more minutes.
Sorry?
You have a few more minutes, then we have a few questions, and then we're okay.
Okay, cool. A few more minutes. So I'm going to do this real quick. 5th Ward. So you have 5th Ward, which is simply, there's a few different ways of holding it. But depending on anything from this point up until this point is 5th Ward, right? You have classic 5th Ward, and then you have rare 5th. I work out of rare 5th a lot, because from rare 5th, you can hide your tip behind your buckler, and your your center line is really far away from your opponent. So it's a really good one to work out of. And if you really want to hide the distance, you can work out of regular fifth and have your tip pointing backwards. But with the regular fifth forward, you have your true edge is facing down and your false edge is facing up, and you align yourself to cut up by rotating the tip straight forward. You're set up to continue up that trajectory with false edge, which sets you up for that bind to transition into true. And this is the first time that we'll show it now on the inside line of your opponent rather than the outside line as I've been turning along. So if I get a long point, further back. Okay. So much space. Okay. So I'm in for forward here. And remember, keep your shoulders down. I should have had like a form introduction before that. There's a specific form and stance you need to have for this kind of fencing, I believe. But that's another lecture for another time. We have our tip. And I am first, I don't know if the camera can see it, if it's down by my feet, but I'm rotating my tip by my toes so that I'm basically ending up in rare fifth, transitioning from fifth. And here I have false edges. That was the table. And I'm cutting up so that I'm meeting my opponent. I have a loose grip, but I'm meeting my opponent with false edge. And it's the same as before. I'm rotating to true edge to get that leverage. And this takes a little bit of rotation from the body. Maybe a little bit of pitch as well. So that I have the advantage of if you were to thrust the second right here, you'll be thrusting past my line, whereas I'm set up to thrust directly into him. Or from here, I bind down and then I cut up with false edge. And cutting up with false edge is really fun. Everything that's fun in I.33 is false edge basically. So once again, and now I'll add buckler. And this time works in rare fish, so I have tip. And I have my buckler. And as you see, my buckler is protecting me from his threat as I come in. And I'm basically just extending from here into true edge in order to get that rotation once I meet him from false edge into true edge. And from here, with my buckler protecting my hand from his sword, or I'm binding and cutting up. Just, you probably can't see it's on a frame, but no. I kind of do that, but you all know what that is. So that was all the wards that I have time to go through today with false edge, but I think you get the idea. I wish I had more time to show it on the inside line. We've done a lot of outside line, but you get the idea. Yep. And that's basically what this is about. So I have my notes very organized, and I'm ready for questions.
Yeah, I have some questions. First of all, in that great workshop, great lecture, because there's really interesting pointers which I already written down. I'm going to teach myself, to be fairly honest. Cool. I also am a great fan of I.33, so I'm only teach that because usually I skip bolognese. So I'm definitely going to do that, and I see two of my students already sending me 6 personal messages about when are we going to do this. So that's going to be great. So the first one in the thing, you started telling me about the pictures where you can clearly see that that the hands are turned the other way. Do you notice a significant difference when sparring or when doing tournaments as well?
You mean the effect of holding? Well, if I'm going in for a bind, if my opponent is in long point and I'm allowed to make the bind, absolutely there's a huge difference because I have that rotation that I don't have when I hold the sword in the normal way. As soon as I begin my cut, I mean, it's kind of like if you're gonna do what is it called, a long sword, the helicopter thing. I don't really do long sword, but
Blackout.
Exactly. It's kind of like that. You see some people change their grip in advance in order to be aligned so that they don't have to change their grip in the air. So they're kind of like, oh, I'm going to cheat a little bit. And instead of standing like this, they're standing like this, basically, so that they can go straight into the helicopter. Yep. It's a bit like that I mean, I'm just going to stand like this to prepare myself for meeting you with the inside blade. It's setting yourself up in advance. So another argument to that is that, well, you're giving away what you're going to do. Maybe you should hold your sword the normal way and then transition in the cut, and there's probably some validity to that. But I think that since they're showing it this way in the manuscript, is something we should at least attempt to replicate.
Yeah, it's a bit like a loaded spring in this case, in that you're standing ready to unfold it in complete one motion, while if you do it on the moment, it might not work as perfectly.
Yeah, exactly. A loaded spring is a nice way of describing it. I like that.
Yeah, right. Dan, I have one question I saw from the chat. In a situation where you end up in an underbind, in a long point or half shield situation, would you do a mutasho gliding with the false edge as well?
So if I'm bound down, or if I'm above in the
if you are bound down.
That's a good question. It's better if you can like show me. So you mean if I'm binding from below?
Yes.
Okay. So that's I don't get anything from the lone ward. So from priest special, or from first, or from fifth or rare fifth is an underbind. That's how I interpret an underbind. I know that others don't do it that way, or some do, some don't. And I think anything from second or third or fourth or crook would be an overbind, because you're starting from above. So what I demonstrated here with priest, if you imagine that his blade is here, now he's holding the camera, so he can't help me, but you're meeting from underneath, you're binding from below.
Yep.
And then you're rotating so that you are above his blade in the end. I don't know if that answers your question, but I feel like what I demonstrated was basically underbinds.
I think it does. Yes. I'll check up. He's in my club as well, so I'll just check up and I'll send him to message you if he has more questions.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. All right. That was about our time, because in that we have the next one waiting already.
Okay.
I really enjoyed this workshop. I hope you enjoyed giving it as well.
I did. This was a lot of fun. I've never done a digital event before, so this was cool.
Great. Yeah, and
Thank you guys for organizing this for the community. It's
yeah,
really
no problem. I'm really enjoying myself with all the lectures I have, and I already have 4 pages written down. So I'm gonna be spent for the next lockdowns to come. Thank you for coming, and I hope to see you in the next event in real life again.
Same. So, and I'll be watching the next seminar. So good luck with that.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.